Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are using the Lovely Layers Magnolia. I pulled out the winter greenery, but I didn't end up using it, and then the Be Still stamps and dies. So do you remember a few Mondays ago on a Monday night premiere, we did some watercoloring and we compared to like smushing the ink pad down on the mat comparative to using the re-inkers. And then at the end of it, I had this ink left over. So I sprayed the paper, I sprayed that down, and then I picked it up. Well, today it's going to get its turn to shine. So this is just an ink smushed panel. I pulled out this other panel as well. That's from the same video. This is one of the backgrounds that I didn't end up using, and I am actually going to cut my Magnolia out of these watercolor backgrounds. And I chose a Magnolia specifically because it is a traditionally white flower, and I thought it would be really pretty to die cut it out of like a rainbow watercolor, but then still shade it like a white flower. So here you can see I have little helping hands. And so the leaves and the centers I'm doing out of white, just the actual petals of the flowers I'm cutting out of the watercolor paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and tape these down, sometimes with watercolor paper because it is a little bit more textured. Sometimes those low tack tapes have a little bit of trouble sticking to them. Just be generous with the tape. And then because I am going to cut this out on my Scout, but also because I want to keep the rest of the paper nice. You know, sometimes when you're rolling it through your die cutting machine, some of the edges can get like crimped, or you can get maybe like pieces that you didn't realize were still left in your plate, like can press up into it. So because I knew I was going to need to cut 2 of the Magnolias out of the watercolor cardstock, and I didn't have any more, it's not like I could just pull another piece out of the package. I wanted to make sure to keep those separate. And then here I just have a little container. This is from... It's actually an ink pad holder from Glassboard Studios, but I'm just going to throw them in there. And like I said, I ended up cutting 2 full flowers, their 2 centers, and then I think I cut 6 leaves. I'm also going to do this little centerpiece out of the Art Deco dies. I think I said this recently in a video, like these things are just living on my desk for some reason. I'm really, really liking using these as of late. So once I have all my die cutting done, you guys know how I roll. Anytime I'm going to be doing some coloring of the die cuts, I like to spread them out, separate them by item and then by color to see, what I have, to make sure I have all my pieces parts, just because I'm not a big fan of die cutting, so I don't want to have to go back in. So the first way we can do this is the Magnolias are white, but sometimes they have like a pinkish center. So I've chosen some like corally pink colors, which you would normally see on a Magnolia. And then I'm just marking the shadow areas with my lightest color. And in this case, it's really light because we still want to color it as if it is a white flower. So I'm just marking with my lightest, I think this is not, I don't even think this is a pink. I think this is a red. What is that? An R00? Yeah, that makes sense. And then I'll put the center there as well to just kind of mark around where I need the darkest shading to be. So this is just one way that you could do this. And you don't have to, like I chose pink because that's how you would like see Magnolias. They would be the pink that blended into white, but you don't have to do this realistically. You could use any kind of a lighter color that, worked with your watercolor. So you could do a blue, a purple, mine are rainbow, but you can, any watercolor pieces that you have left over. I know we all have pieces left over from like the distress smushing and things like that. So then once I had that shadow marked with the lightest color, I went in with the darkest color. I used very, very little because remember, we're coloring this as if it is white. I'm going to blend that out with my mid-tone, and then I'll go back over it with my lightest color. The whole point of the lightest color is not really to add a lot of color. It's just to blend those two slightly darker pinks into the rest of that watercolor. And so, like, you can see, even though pink and green are complementary colors, like, I still went right over the green with the pink. Like, I'm shading the whole thing with the colors that I have. And then here, I'm just showing you what it looks like when you put it all together. These are the golden yellows that I'm going to use for the center of the flower, and I'm going to use these for both of them. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark that with my lightest yellow, and then my darkest color will go onto the bottom of the, it kind of looks like an outer like skirt of the center of the flower, and then also in the center we'll add that darkness and then work our way up toward the lightest. The little skirt portion will have more of our lightest color because it's not, there's nothing on top of it. It's not sitting in shadow. And then of course I'm going to color in the white so that we don't see that creeping through when everything gets put together. And then here is how that one looks. Doesn't it look like it's glowing? It looks almost like iridescent, and especially like when we get to the end and we put the clear shimmer over it, that rainbow behind it gives it like this iridescent look that I just love. I love it so much, so much. So then here for this one, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to color it with cool grays. So I'm going to color it as if it was white, and not, there was no pink in the flower. Just so you can see the difference. You can shade anything with gray markers. You just want to make sure, again, if you're coloring it white, which that is our goal here, because we really want that rainbow to kind of shine through, we want to use very little of our marker colors because we're only adding the shadows. So you may notice from my voice, if in case you missed it last week, when I was like, hey, I'm out, I have the flu. So my oldest child actually brought it home from school, and he unfortunately had like the gastrointestinal part of it as well as the respiratory, though he never had a fever. I skipped the gastrointestinal part of it, but I definitely had the respiratory, the sore throat. It ended up, the flu ended up giving me pink eye. And I was like, how did that even happen? And she was like, yeah, because it's a virus, like it can permeate the membrane of your eye. So I had multiple doctor's appointments that I had to go to. And then, because I'm also a person who gets cold sores, and that's viral as well. So then I had to like get out the medication for the cold sores. This one, like, I didn't feel completely, totally 100% terrible. Like, I was still able to function. But it had a lot of complications with it. And I'm like, is it because I'm getting old? Or is it just a particularly bad strain? I don't really know. Okay, so back to the flower. Here, that's what the gray one looks like. Now, I do want my flowers to look the same because they are going on the same card. So I'm going to show you what this one looks like. Here, this is with the center, and then here, this is the pink one. And now I'm going to do kind of like the same on both of them. So I'm going to go in over the gray with though like that pink and kind of glaze over top of it. And then for the one that we colored with the pinks, I'm going to go in with the grays. And this is just to make sure on the card that they match one another. But I did want to just show you that there was two different ways to approach it. That you didn't have to be necessarily married to one or the other. And obviously now that I know like where the shadows are and everything, it's a much faster process to go back through it than it was the first time. And that's true of anything that you color multiple times. This, for some reason, I don't know, I'm very drawn to the magnolia. This one in particular, I have used quite a bit. It's one of my favorite Lovely Layers. So I don't know why. I think it's just because it's such like a large open flower, and I do love me some florals. And the largest ones are like the easiest to have fun with, because it's not super stressful about like getting into the small areas and stuff like that. Like you can just play with it. Here, I felt like the gray was a little strong, so I just went back over it with those same pinks again. So you can do it. And then here, even like I'm kind of like mixing them up. So one that I colored pink and then put the gray over, I'm going to pair with one that I colored gray and put the pink over. And you can do just whatever works for you. I did, when I was die cutting them, try to pick the lighter watercolor for the top pieces. And then I'm just going to go ahead and glue these together. These come together super simple. It's just a couple of layers. Perfect die cut for me. Maybe that's why I use it so much. So anyway, so I have had the flu, and then in addition to that, I've also had the second part of the color theory for card makers going on, which with me being sick, and it was a total struggle to get through. And so like I'm super grateful for those that participated in that class for like their patience, because it was definitely kind of thinly controlled chaos. I still actually owe them a wrap up, which I plan to put up today. Because Saturday we did our live stream, and then pretty much after it was done, like I ate dinner, I got my daughter into bed, and then like I took a shower and was in the bed. So here with the leaves, I chose to go with a darker leaf because I wanted those colors to really pop. So when you have a lighter colored floral, or a lighter color, anything, honestly, and you pair it with a darker background or darker supporting images, you're going to really push that light color forward and help it to really be the kind of like the star of the show, which is exactly what I wanted. So originally I colored the leaves, and then I didn't really pay too much attention to like the veining. And then after I colored them, I did feel like I missed it. I missed that embossed detail there. So I just went back in and put it in. And then this time around, like I am going to pay a little bit better attention, so that I, maybe a little lighter handed on the outside edges, and then I can come back in with that darker color, and, just, you can see how fast I'm moving. I'm just very kind of just swiftly going over those lines just to create that detail. So here I wanted to show you, this is a lighter background that I originally looked at, and then that's the branch from the greenery I didn't use. And then I want you to watch how it comes from a light background to a dark background, and how those flowers just totally pop forward. Now they are the star of the show, and they're singing, and their rainbow colors are doing the most, and they're looking beautiful. For the sentiment, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a white heat embossed sentiment on navy, or if I wanted to do a navy sentiment on a white. So I ended up actually doing them both, and I highly recommend that because it's just a sentiment, and so it's not a ton of extra work. And then if you don't end up using the other one, then you just put it right back in your, little cellophane bag or your little package, or, whatever it is that you store your stamp sets in, and then you'll just have it for the next one. It's not like that sentiment is going to go bad, especially this one. It's just thinking of you. So here, as I'm trying the dark one, I don't love that. I feel like it's kind of taking away from my flowers. The white one with the navy sentiment looks so much better and brings everything together. So once I have that one there, then I can go ahead and start building my card. So now I'm using my Tombow Mono Multi-Glue. This is a repositionable glue. If you set it down when it is wet, it will be permanent. If you set it down when it is dry, then it will be temporary. So just to make sure that it is not too wet, you saw me tapping it on my finger, like with my fingers, or tapping it on my hand. And I just do that to make sure that it's not going to be permanent. And then these will hold really nicely in place while I use my tweezers to tuck my leaves in. So some of the leaves got tucked behind and glued down to the actual like navy card front, and then some of these got tucked behind just the flower and got glued to that Art Deco panel. And the reason that this is because it's going to create different layers of dimension, because I am, once I have them all in place, I am then going to go ahead and pick them up so that I can pop up the entire piece. Before I do that, I'm going to, once I'm happy with where my flowers are at, I am going to go back in and add more adhesive, because remember, we just kind of tacked them in place while we were putting the leaves in. So we do want to make sure that we add glue to them so that they are permanently adhered. And then I'm going to take the whole piece, add foam tape to it, and then that way it will sit nicely above those other leaves that we see, that we've glued down there. And I think it's just a nice way to add a lot of dimension. So then once I'm happy with how it is seated, I will go ahead and push that down, and then I can trim off the excess of the flowers that are kind of hanging over. The sentiment, I'm just going to put in that kind of open bottom right area. And then it kind of completes that diagonal design. I'm going to put it right over the flower. And then because this stamps as 1 but cuts out as 3, you can do it as like a linear, or you could do it as a stacked sentiment. For me in this space, the stacked sentiment worked better. So that's what I chose to do. And then I am doing the shimmers. This is just a clear shimmer. This can reactivate your distress inks. So I do make sure to go with the shape of the petal. But with the alcohol markers on top of it, it kind of like seals it in. I felt like my middles didn't really have enough texture. And so I did kind of just do a little bit of stippling to help give them just a little bit more interest with the same colors that we used before. And then in addition, to those colors, I did do some stippling with some white gel pen. And then, like I said before, I'm going to trim off the excess. These are just my Spellbinder shears. Love these for trimming the cards, especially watercolor paper is a little bit thicker and we have a couple of layers. They cut through it, no problem. And then just trimmed off this side to bring everything together. The last thing that I need to do is add even more shimmer. You guys know me, this is not news. These are Honeybee's Rainbow Rhinestones. And I am just going to fill in that area in between the 2 flowers and the sentiment, just to accent that. I get a little bit of glue where I didn't want it, so I used an adhesive eraser. And then here you can see all those shimmer. Like, don't the flowers look just like incandescent, like they're glowing? I love them. You'll have to let me know what you think of the technique. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.